Want to break into DevOps in 2025. Now you have no CS degree, you come from a non-technical background, and YouTube has just way too much noise. Ready to confuse you even more with all the opinions and so on. In this video, I'll show you exactly what works step by step and how these students in our community have gone from 0 to 80,000 plus dollar roles. Now it's worked for 300 plus people in our community, and I'll walk you through it here. Now let's get straight in. The foundations. Now let's forget cloud for a second. You have to learn how systems and basic computers and how they actually work. Because DevOps is about gluing all of these components together. First things first. We're gonna learn. So if I write DevOps here, right? Handwriting's not that great, but yes. So first thing is gonna be Linux. Now with Linux, Linux is basically your operating system, right? You're gonna learn commands like PS, system control, SSH. You're gonna learn how to type these commands into your CLI on the computer, right? Type SSH, type CD, MV, and these commands will be crucial later on. Next thing after that, we're gonna learn something called Git, right? Now, Git is how code basically moves, right? Branches, PRs, merge conflicts, and these are terms you come across later on. But essentially, is for example, let's say you have a piece of code and you want to commit this code, you want to push it somewhere, right? And you want to store it somewhere. How do you do this? How do you actually store these things? That's what you understand. You learn the flow of this, right? Just commit messages and so on, many more things. After this, we're gonna learn something also very, very important: networking. And I don't mean people networking, right? I mean actual computer networking. Now you can understand how IP addresses work. How, for example, if you type right now into the browser mirror.com, how does that resolve to an actual IP? How is that done? You need to understand that. The ports it uses, DNS protocols, TCP, and you won't become a network engineer, but you learn to, troubleshoot these issues in DevOps. And these are the three fundamentals: Linux, Git, and networking. Once you have these in check, you can move on to the more advanced stuff. Let's move on. Next thing after this, we're going to learn AWS. Now, AWS is currently the market leader for cloud computing, right? It has the market, Azure, GCP, but AWS is still there. So hence why we recommend it. Now, AWS has a lot of services, right? It can be very easy to get confused. So if I write here AWS is broken down to four things. You have compute, you have storage, you have database, you have IAM, and those are the main concepts or the main topics you need to understand. For example, in compute, you have EC2 instancy, you have ECS, you have Lambda, EKS, and many of these things. There's so many services, but you need to learn these fundamentals. For example, ECS, EKS, there's going to be S3, there's going to be RDS, and there's going to be IAM, right? There's going to be networking part as well, VPCs, subnets, and all these things are part of the roadmap. Once you learn these things, you can move on to the next thing. And now AWS, I call it ClickOps. Now, we're going to learn how to use the services, right, by clicking and actually seeing how they work, how they connect, right? And we're going to start here before automating anything. Because guess what? What comes after AWS is Terraform. So let's write that here. Now, Terraform essentially is an infrastructure as code tool. That means you can automate whatever is on in AWS, but this time as code, right? And it's important to understand this piece of automation. And currently, Terraform is the market leader, right? There's CloudFormation, and there's ARM, and many other infra as code tools. But Terraform is the one that you need to learn. Then after that, we're gonna have CICD. Now, this stands for continuous integration and continuous development or deployment, whatever you call it. But CICD essentially is the automation of DevOps, right? Automating your whatever you do locally, but into a runner or into a pipeline, as you call it, right? Pipelines. Now you're gonna automate everything. If you're running tests for your application, building Docker images, deploying infrastructure, and what we recommend here is GitHub Actions. Here is a great starting point. You have Jenkins, you have GitLab, but GitHub Actions is what we recommend for CI/CD. Now, once you've done this, these are the core things you need to understand, right? There's Kubernetes and other things, but that's for later on. Once you have these core fundamentals, right? Which, if you go up, we said Git, Linux, Git, and networking, right? Then you have AWS, Terraform, CI/CD. Once you have these things, we have the next step. Now, the next step is going to be something called, and it's really big, the ECS project. So let me write here. Now, this is the one project we recommend every student in our community, all friends who ask me, I want to get in DevOps mode. How do I do it? The ECS project, right? It's helped all sorts of people land roles from all backgrounds, right? Now, this combines Docker, containers, GitHub Actions, Terraform, AWS, And we're deploying this to an actual environment with HTTPS, SSL, CICD, all the things you've learned in the modules or in the previous topics into one thing. Hence why we call this the ECS project, because it combines everything. You go to an interview and you show them that you built this project, you documented it, and this becomes the centerpiece of your portfolio, right? And I've got actually architecture here which I can show you. So once you've deployed the ECS project, this is what it roughly looks like. As you can see here, the user accesses your Active 3, it goes through the load balancers into the ECS, and they actually access your backend, right? This is how DevOps is basically done, right? You have in the background developers working on GitHub, Terraform, the CICD, GitHub Actions. As you can see, there's a lot of components there, right? As a starter, you may be confused what's going on here. But once you've covered all these, we call it modules or steps, once you do this, everything will click. It'll put that one picture, everything into one picture, basically, which is very important. Now, once you're on the project and you think, okay, cool, now I actually have a project on, ready to put on my CV. After this, we're gonna have flow CV, or basically it's gonna be your CV, right? So if I draw a line here, and the 8th thing is gonna be your CV, and CV is the first impression your employers or your future employees or your hiring manager will see. If your CV is not good, there's no point then in moving forward, right? And there's a platform which we all use, which we all recommend, it's called Flow CV, right? If you log in here, and as you can see here, I will have example CVs here. As you can see with Flow CV, right, you have your profile, you have work experience, whatever you're working on goes here. Now the main thing about Flow CV is that you don't have to worry about the layout. Everything is done for me here, as you can see, right? Which is again very important. Right? I don't have to worry about the layouts, the color. All I have to do is put in the content and what I need to show. The design is done for me, right? All these GIFs, all these images of the icons here, as you can see. I haven't done this, right? It's all through Flow CV. Then when your CV is ready and you think, okay, I'm ready to start applying for jobs, just before that, we recommend you to make your LinkedIn profile, or you've done it before, but we recommend to make this LinkedIn profile, recommend you to post your projects, your certificates, anything you've been working on, right? And it's very important to showcase this because your employees will actually see these things. So if I open LinkedIn now, right, people actually post this thing, right? People see what you post. For example, this person here has posted about this new book they're selling, for example. Again, we have Kai's here who has posted some example best practices, right? And these are actually best practices that you use in the workplace. The employee will see is like, he will think, okay, Kai's knows this stuff. I think I should hire him, right? He knows this stuff. And that is what I mean by LinkedIn. It could be tech content, non-tech, but mainly tech, so you understand that you're a technical engineer and you know what you're doing. Now, once you have, LinkedIn sorted, you're happy, your CV is all ready, then we're going to do the job search, right? Now, when you do job searches, you have LinkedIn the first starting point. If you go to jobs here, we can actually see like jobs that people are hiring for. So let's just start here. Let's search for DevOps engineer role and type enter. Okay. I think these are all the companies that are hiring. For example, Travel Perk. You can go on this, right? If you look at this, let's go through this. You see here, right? Let's look at the required skills. As you can see here, AWS, Docker, Linux, all the CICD stuff right here. And this is exactly what we covered. And the roadmap doesn't teach you things that are outside of this. It teaches you everything you need for the role, right? And we don't recommend easy applies. Ideally, go on the website, look for the company Travel Perk or Amstick, and apply through there, right? Because easy applies and they're easy to do, but they're also easy to ignore by recruiters. So go on the website, look for the role, and apply through it directly. Next thing after LinkedIn, right? So we said let's put 10 here, job search. Next thing, when you're searching for job, right, you get interviews. Of course, you have tech interviews, you have cultural interviews, you have different stages, right? And you must prepare for them. So the 11th thing we have right now will be your, tech interview prep. So we call this interview prep, right? You must prepare for interviews. When you go for interviews, especially technical ones, you need to understand how to answer these tech questions. You need practice. And a good place to start is TechVault. So we have a repository from our community, which I've created actually. And inside here, there are example questions which I myself as a hiring manager and other people in my community have actually asked real life interview questions, as you can see here. Right, for example, for Linux, each question is split into topics. Linux, for example, what is Linux kernel? What are inodes? And if you scroll down, you can check how to answer them. So you need to get used to and practice how these questions can be answered in interviews. You go down, we have networking, keep going down, we have Git, we have AWS, and all sorts. Now, it's important to practice these interviews before. For example, ask yourself, right? Record the answer and listen to it. Does that make sense? Right? And get some practice. Or even call a friend, right? Test you and on these topics. And inside our community, we actually do mock interviews. I myself and other people in our community, we run mock interviews for people. We have an interview coming up. We prep you for it as if it's a real interview, right? We'll give you feedback and you improve and go from there. But here is a good starting point. Take note. Moving on, right? Once you have interview prep, you've done all that stuff, right? Now it's important to understand that it's okay to fail interviews. Everyone also does this. Just do more mock interviews and get practice at it. That's how you get sharp. Now, if this roadmap makes sense to you and you're done wasting time with the random tutorials, you know what? Come join our private community on Skool. You get full access to calls, labs, mock interviews, and this exact roadmap starting from zero until you get that offer.